There were a couple of penalties handed out in the aftermath of the Four Corners 200. Rip Tyler and Brenda Riggs were penalized 25 points each for causing avoidable collisions during the race. Tiffany Matthews was also given a warning for lining up in the wrong line on the final restart of the first race. She had lined up on the outside line when she was a lap down. Also after the first race, there was an altercation in the infield between Kiriki Hitsuno and Taylor Brillin. Brillin had turned Hitsuno into the wall earlier in the race, and given their past run-ins, Hitsuno was not happy, and so they got into a bit of a shouting match after the race. It was really more like Hitsuno shouting, Brillin cowering match. But fortunately, Hitsuno stormed off before things escalated. However, I should point out that Brillin was very apologetic over her radio after the wreck happened. I had even suspected that the wreck wasn't intentional the first time I saw it, but it looks like Hitsuno didn't think so. And now moving on to this week, we have a full weekend of racing ahead of us, and Earl, you're going to be a busy man. That's right, Scott. I drove in the race today, and tomorrow I'm in the touring car race driving for the Zenith Factory team. And then on Sunday is the TM Lights race. Yeah, the paddock was very crowded with all those cars and haulers. Anyway, it rained pretty heavily for today's race, but Rubber Dub Dub brings rain tires to every event, so they just slapped those on the cars and turned them loose. Let's look at what happened. Taking the Cromwell Pool Award for round number 1 is Ebenezer Quiggles Jr., driving for the Canadian-based Fluffy Penguin Onion Burger. Seiju Dejiao in car 91 qualified on his outside, but Dejiao gets a poor turn number 1, and Yevgeny Kuznetsov slides into the second position. It was surprisingly clean through the first corner, and oh, we got a car running wide and off the course. But before that, Ben Atkins breaks down in car number 84, and that will be the end of his race. He doesn't even make it past turn 1. And here is Lucas Sweeney. He was the car who went off the road in turn number 2. He hits the tire wall, and that is Nikos Kostopoulos who went off behind him, and we got a couple more cars off, but they don't hit the wall. Now again, here's Kostopoulos who went off the road right behind Sweeney, and Kostopoulos' day is done in turn 2. Further up the track, Phil Summers goes off in the 09. He tries to get it corrected, but he sweeps across the track, making contact with 116 of Tiffany Matthews, and Summers goes into the tire wall. And Summers is done on the first lap as well. At the end of the first lap, Quiggles continues to lead, and Earl, you have moved up into the second spot. Yeah, I've run in the rain in some of the racing that I've been doing on the side, and so this really isn't anything new for me. I was fully expecting it to get taken out on the first lap, though, and I was surprised that it was as clean as it was. Oh, I think I saw you go off the road a little bit in turn 1. No, I didn't. Philip Borland is back in the pie car this week, and he's really been struggling in the rain. No, I don't think that's the case. The team really hasn't gotten the car dialed in all week. He had a very poor qualifying effort, and qualifying was in the dry. But at least he isn't Ryan Gregory in the 97, who's been almost dangerously slow in these opening laps. He drove right off the road in the opening laps of Road America, and he's not doing too much to redeem himself right now. Here's Leigh Gruel, your teammate, running in third. Seiju Dejiao is trying to make a move around him, and Gruel goes off the road. He hits the wall, tries to get the car corrected. He gets back on the track and almost goes off the other side. Oh, contact with Gary D'Souza in the 149. Puts both cars into the wall. And there's Rip Tyler going into the pits early. These rain tires don't last very long, but that's still pretty early to be making a stop. And now Gruel's going off the road again, and he's into the wall. And that's going to end Gruel's race after he really drops the ball coming to the end of the lap. And now here's the battle for second heating up between you and Scott Dalitz. Yeah, I know Dalitz has been doing a lot of drifting competitions, and so that's going to help him out in the rain. So I figured I should probably let him go at this point and not hold him up. I'm still trying to get a handle on the car at this point, and then I'll try again later. And now here comes Kuznetsov, the winner of race 2 last week. He is trying to take the third spot, but it looks like that you're holding him off pretty good. Here we are again with Ryan Gregory in the 97. It looks like he's trying to pit, but then he loses it off the pit exit, and he goes into the tire wall, and that will mercifully take him out of the race. Brenda Riggs is trying to hold off a few cars in the midfield, and she goes right off the road along with M&J teammate Kevin Monroe. She comes back onto the track into Monroe, who then knocks David Krikorian off the track. Krikorian is heading straight into the tire wall, and there was just nothing he could do about that, although he is able to get that 32 car back onto the track, and he continues on. Brenda Riggs has had a hard time staying out of trouble this season. I'm not sure how series officials are going to react to that. And here is Yevgeny Kuznetsov going off, and he barely kisses the tire walls. And he's able to keep the 82 car going, but he loses a lot of ground on the leaders. And here's the point where I decide to get around the 18 of Dalitz. That is Quiggles off in front of us. And then I'm going to complete the pass down the backstretch. Seiji Dejiao has really slipped back since the beginning of the race. I believe he's made a pit stop, and he goes off and into the tire wall. And that's pretty much a summary of Dejiao's season as he goes out of yet another race. Here's Gary D'Souza in the 149. He's going to go off and into the tire wall as well, and he goes out of the race. D'Souza finished second here a couple of years ago when he was just getting started in the series, but he's not going to have any success today. Yevgeny Kuznetsov made a pit stop shortly after his off, and he is much, much faster than the rest of his competition. Again, these rain tires wear out very quickly, and it's very noticeable when they wear out. Kuznetsov's been laying down some lap times several seconds than the leaders, and passing some of the other cars like he was the star of a bad racing movie. As you see, he is very quickly catching the 15 and the 102 of Todd Stater and Laura Cyrus respectively. Oh, and it looks like he's getting held up by them, so that's going to put a little dent in his progress. And now Kuznetsov sees an opportunity to get by them. Oh, he tags the pie car, Philip Borland. Borland is going to go off and tag the wall. Borland is still extremely slow, so I think he may have caught Kuznetsov by surprise. Now Isaac Leitner, the 7 car, is pitting just ahead of Kuznetsov. Leitner's been doing a pretty good job running close to the top 10 today. A little past halfway, the top 2, Ewan Quiggles pit, and Scott Dalitz in the 18 stays out for an extra lap. But Dalitz comes in at the same time his teammate Benji Flynn is coming out. Dalitz gets into the 36 and he stalls the car, trying to reverse back into his pit stall. That's going to be extremely costly for Dalitz. The 18 team spent a long time trying to get the car fired back up, and they're going to lose a couple of laps doing so. Tough break for Dalitz. He had a very fast car today, but a collision in the pit lane with his teammate has contributed to his downfall. In the meantime, Quiggles continues to lead as pit stops cycle out, but Yevgeny Kuznetsov is in the second spot, so that early pit stop has worked out for him so far, but now he's the one on older tires, and so I'd expect his lap times to be very slow compared to those who have just pitted. Quiggles finds himself in some pretty heavy lap traffic. Philip Borland, Benji Flynn, Kevin Monroe, and Jacob Eichholz. Oh, Borland has just gone off the road, so he's taken himself out of that pack. But Quiggles is doing a good job navigating the slower traffic. He's already got a pretty big lead, so he doesn't have to take any risks trying to get past everybody. But Kuznetsov's having a harder time with the lap traffic, and you were very quick to take advantage and move back into the second spot. I was catching him anyway because I was on those fresher tires, and Leslie Riggs and Bobby Porto just made my job that much easier. Points leader Herbie Finkelberg has brought out a new scheme for this week. His family has paid Speed Vision to advertise their chain of deli shops on the 96 car, but Finkelberg has really been struggling today. He is currently outside of the top 20, and one of his points rivals, Quiggles, who is third in points, is leading the race. So this is shaping up to be very costly for Finkelberg. But here's someone who is having a good run, Darren Grant, in the Derek Cash 20 car. He is running in the 7th position right now. He is coming off of a top 10 finish at Toronto. He told reporters after the race that he was looking forward to getting more top 10s, and he is certainly on his way to do that today. Makoto Yamada in the 22 also finished in the top 10 last week, and he's having another good run as well. But all eyes were on Ebenezer Quiggles Jr., who, as a rookie, is on his way to his second career victory, even as he's getting held up by a couple of slower cars. But that doesn't matter, as Quiggles goes to victory lane for the second time in his short career, and by a commanding margin of 20 seconds over you, Earl. Yeah, he just drove away from everyone after those pit stops. The Fluffy Penguin Onion Burger team has been on top of their game this season, and then 9 seconds behind you was Yevgeny Kuznetsov. A very good follow-up to his victory at Toronto, Bixby Foot finishes a very quiet 4th place. Todd Wlodarczyk, the winner of the first race of Toronto, is 5th. Darren Grant and Makoto Yamada grab a couple more top 10 finishes. Nicole Moreno, a very surprising 8th in the last row Autosport machine. Isaac Leitner is 9th. He's been making a lot of noise in his short time in this series. And then Barton Sandy rounds out the top 10. Now, weather reports during round 1 indicated that the rain would have possibly eased up by the time round 2 got started, but instead, it got worse. But the race went on as scheduled in what I can only describe as monsoon conditions. Kyle Gaffigan led the field to the green flag with Harry Enola on his outside, and I can hardly see a thing at all, but I do see several cars going off in the first corner. Enola, Kiriki Hitsuno, and Jarko Forsström all go spinning off, 2nd through 4th place. Take themselves off the road. That's Zachary Zins in the 99 and Ali Riggs who went off as well. And then there was another wreck at the exit of the corner involving Rachel Rainsford. The 171 car goes spinning off, and so do Lawrence Burr and Mike Andrews in the 500. Andrews is competing in the TM Lights race in a couple of days, and Rachel Rainsford gets rear-ended by Jarko Forsström once more. Coming through turn 2, Robert Scott loses the back end of the 33 car, and he goes spinning off into the grass. He tries to get the car corrected, and you're going to see Jarko Forsström spinning off again. That's the 3rd collision he's been involved in. And a couple other cars went off. Kiriki Hitsuno goes off once again, and that's Dale Hill in the 098, making his 3rd start of the season, and that's off to a very poor start. And now here is Taylor Brillin in the 65, running the Alicroc colors this week. She goes off all by herself and into the tire walls. She gets the car going again and tries to get back onto the track. Jason Teller has gone off, and she gets rear-ended by somebody. I think that was James West in the 69. Rachel Rainsford appears to have gotten into another collision. It is almost impossible to see in this heavy, heavy rain. Libby Bell lost the points lead after only completing 3 laps in the first race at Toronto, and now she goes off the road with Calvin Arailer. So Libby Bell will only complete 1 lap here today. The 24 team's morale has really got to have gone down the drain in these last couple of weeks. And did she get tagged by somebody else? I think that is the 666 car of the man calling himself Dumo, making his first start of the season. I'm not too sure if there was a collision between him and the 24. We're still on lap 1, and the leaders, Kyle Gaffigan and Joseph Howard, the teammates in MRD Motorsports, have gone off the road together, and Jessica Graham has now swept into the lead. Namimura is running in 2nd, but coming out of the backstretch, she spins off the road and slams into the wall. Now, Mura's background is in road racing, where running in the rain is not uncommon. And Jennifer Goodwin slams into the wall right behind her. And then in front of her, a couple more cars go off. I believe those are Andy Pearson and Edwin Schwartzlaski. But back to what I was saying about Mura, she has probably run a number of races in the rain, but I don't think she's ever experienced anything quite like this. And you saw Bob Steffens getting back up to speed. He went off in the final corner. As I mentioned, Jessica Graham took the lead after Gaffigan and Howard went around, but she goes off and into the tire wall. And then a couple more cars follow suit. I can't quite tell who they are. I think those might be the MRD cars again. And then Greg Woodard in the 41 also went off. But Graham is going to go out of the race after she had such an opportunity to shine. I am so glad I wasn't in this round. I think the best decision would have been to call the race and pick it up again tomorrow, but I guess the officials don't see any reason to do that. I guess they're not motivated enough by a whole bunch of junked cars. Now Patrick Henderson has gone off and into the tire walls in the opening laps as well. Now we're looking at Robert Scott again. There is Nick Howard in the 58. He has gone off and into the wall and is trying to nurse his crippled car around the track. In the meantime, Scott goes into the tire barriers, and Taylor Brillin has gone off again. Now this is just getting ridiculous. I think everybody in the field is guaranteed to get into at least one accident during the race, and the winner is going to be the guy who gets into the least amount of accidents. Tyson Lautenschlager in the 4 has taken over the lead of the race. Joseph Howard is still 2nd after going off the road a couple of times. Lane Cranston is 3rd. He has stayed out of trouble in these opening laps. And now Lautenschlager is around and into the wall. Joseph Howard now sweeps into the lead, but it looks like Lautenschlager is going to be able to get going again while retaining the 3rd spot. But look who is running in 5th. Paul Lyons in the 54. The underfunded and underpowered Team Burr car. Lyons has not hit a thing, and I think having an underpowered car may actually be an advantage in these horrendous conditions. He'll probably be going too slow to spin off the road. Lyons was looking at a top 15 finish at Toronto last week, but then he got trapped a lap down, and then he kind of made headlines by not playing very nice with the leaders in the closing laps. He may have contributed to Benji Flynn losing the race to Yevgeny Kuznetsov. And here he is, again holding up faster traffic, this time Greg Woodard in the 41, who's trying to get around him for the 5th spot. And here is AJ Young, Lyons' teammate, running right off the road, and I have to say predictably so. Adam Thomas is this week's driver in the Team Empire car, and he goes right off the road and into the tire wall. That's going to take him out of the race in the opening laps. Thomas was, of course, chosen as a winner of Empire's Rent-A-Car promotion, in which they select an Empire customer to drive their car every week. But this weather has probably put a huge damper on his moment. Dumo has blown up just after cracking the 20th position. This guy thinks he is a supervillain of some kind, and he likes to brag about a speeding ticket that he received in the 1980s. He claims that it was the most evil thing that he has ever done. He has surprisingly retained his ARLA competitor's license, even though he probably needs to be institutionalized. Kyle Gaffigan pits early on. Maybe he noticed how well Yevgeny Kuznetsov's pit strategy worked for him. Well, that, and it looks like Gaffigan's got quite a bit of damage that his crew needs to repair. In the meantime, his teammate Joseph Howard continues to lead, and he's just spun around and tagged the wall, but he quickly gets the car going again, and he will not lose any positions. And Ami Mura in the 39 has gone around behind him. Mura is currently running a lap down. And now we take a look at Derek Dudding. I know we called Ryan Gregory dangerously slow in the first round, but Dudding is barely cracking 80 miles an hour down the backstretch. I don't know why he hasn't been called off the track yet. He is probably going to cause an accident. Joseph Howard is negotiating with a couple of lap cars, and here comes AJ Young into the picture. Jason Bates gets into the back of the O2 and almost causes a wreck. Like his teammate Derek Dudding, AJ Young has also been dangerously slow. Kyle Gaffigan and Paul Lyons battle for position. These two are still up inside the top 10, and Gaffigan has been posting the fastest lap times among the cars still on the lead lap. That's what fresher tires will do for you, especially these rain tires, which, as we mentioned before, wear out very quickly, and they have a lot of drop-off. Bob Steffens had a top 10 run going in the first half of this race, but then the 211 car goes up in smoke. Greg Woodard continues to run in the second position. His ARLA campaign has not been going so well, but he has made a bit of noise in the TM Master Cup Series. He finished 4th at Carbondale and held off Adrian Devereaux, the defending series champion over there, for a number of laps. And he has settled into a nice rhythm in the heavy rain, and so maybe he can start to make some noise in this series too. Tyson Lautenschlager has been running very quietly ever since going off the road from the lead, but there he goes off of turn number 1, and he slams into the wall. And that's going to be the end of the race for the Canadian native. Lane Cranston is still riding around in the 3rd spot. 2012 has been an absolute disaster for the MT Motorsports team, but Cranston is on track to get his best career finish. But here comes Kyle Gaffigan continuing his charge. He has made his way up to the 4th position, and now he wants 3rd from Cranston. Cranston is going to move over and let Gaffigan go without much of a problem. Gaffigan is running lap times several seconds faster than the leaders. Morgan Hamburg is in the 26 car this week. He is trying to make his way onto pit road, but he runs the access road wide and slams into the end of the pit wall. And a rather embarrassing incident is going to take Hamburg out of the race, and you saw that AJ Young ran into the back of the 26 as well. Joseph Howard hits the pit lane a little past the halfway point. Greg Woodard follows that same lap, and there goes Kyle Gaffigan. He will take the lead as both Howard and Woodard receive service. and naturally, Howard beat Woodard out of the pits, and now Howard is going to be on much fresher tires than Gaffigan, and oh! I think he just hit someone! It is just so hard to see, but yeah, Howard does have some very heavy damage. Let's have another look at that. We're looking for a slower car, and there was somebody there. I think that was AJ Young in the O2. That green car just blended in with the grass, and he was so hard to see. I think AJ Young was limping away from his accident with Morgan Hamburg. Now, he was in the grass, but so many cars have been running off in that area that it might as well have been in the middle of the racing line. I don't even think Howard saw AJ Young at all. And now Howard will go out of the race after dominating the first half. But Kyle Gaffigan continues to lead. He made his pit stop early and had the fresher tires until the rest of the leaders made their stops. And now Gaffigan is at a disadvantage with the cars that just pitted gaining several seconds per lap on him. But it's still going to be interesting to see if Gaffigan can hang on. Greg Woodard is still in the second spot, and he had gained about 8 seconds on Gaffigan on his last lap. I believe Gaffigan holds about a 30-second lead at this point in the race, so saying that Gaffigan has the race in the bag is quite a stretch. Paul Lyons is currently running in 9th. He is still in contention for a top 10, but he has been put a lap down as you see Greg Woodard about to get by him. Lyons has been doing a great job keeping that car out of trouble, and I think if that TTE engine wasn't as underpowered as it is, then Lyons would easily be dominating this race. I think Lyons may have some slower cars ahead of him for position, so I think he could definitely gain a few more spots. With 5 laps to go, Kyle Gaffigan's lead is now down to less than 10 seconds over Greg Woodard. I don't really think Gaffigan has anything for Woodard. Woodard is certainly coming in a hurry, and I think he's going to blow by Gaffigan. And Gaffigan has just hit Dudding! Gaffigan has slammed into Derek Dudding. He swerved to try to get around the 68, and there goes the 41 for the lead. I don't think Gaffigan saw Dudding until the last second. Then he swerved to try to get around him, but it just didn't work out. That's got to be gut-wrenching for Gaffigan. I mean, Greg Woodard was almost definitely going to catch him and pass him, but Dudding just made things worse. But Gaffigan is still running in second. It's a long way back to third, and that damage he got is not severe enough to require him to pit. So I would say that Gaffigan really had nothing to lose. But Team Burr has been the bane of MRD's existence today. Their 2 remaining cars slam into the slower Burr cars and take themselves out of contention. But now Greg Woodard holds a commanding lead over the rest of the field, and he has the freshest tires among anyone else. So Woodard really has no competition at this point, and Greg Woodard is going to keep his car on the road in the final laps to take home his first ARLA Elite Series victory in the monsoon conditions at Mosport. Gaffigan finished a whopping 50 seconds behind Woodard. Lane Cranston would hang on to the 3rd position, and again, that is his best career finish. Then Mike Andrews sneaks home in 4th, and that is it for the cars that finished on the lead lap. Mac Ryland is the first car 1 lap down. Dale Hill goes from first lap troubles to a 6th place finish. Ditto for Jennifer Goodwin. She spun off the road and had a pretty hard collision with the wall, but she still finished in 7th. Paul Lyons, first top 10 for Team Burr since 2009 when they ran their partial schedule and had some surprisingly good performances. Slow and steady won the race for Paul Lyons, or at least got him 8th place. But still, there were some very happy faces in the 54 pit. Robert Scott finished in 9th after he had a couple of offs in the opening laps, and then Andy Pearson rounds out the top 10. And now let's take a look at the point standings leaving this rain-soaked race. Ebenezer Quiggles Jr., no surprise, he moves up into the points lead after his victory and the troubles of his points rivals Herbie Finkelberg and Libby Bell. In fact, Bell dropped all the way to 5th. Laura Cyrus moved up into the 3rd position, and Yevgeny Kuznetsov continues to march back up towards the top of the standings. David Krikorian is 6th in the standings despite his troubles today. Eric Jackson is 7th. Jackson had finished in the top 15 in every single one of his races until today, where he finished in 25th, but he is still very solidly up in the top 10. Alex Carson and Bigsby Foot are tied for 8th. They are 100 points behind the leader. Rybert Scott is 10th. Ashley Tucker, 11th. Casey Campbell, 12th. Rip Tyler, 13th. Darren Grant has made his way up to the 14th spot. Michael Madrigal is 15th. Benji Flynn, 16th. Andy Pearson is 17th. Bobby Porteau and Scott Dollitz are tied for 18th. And then Leslie Riggs is 20th after a rather lackluster performance today.